Hello, my name's Grace.
I'm Meg.
And this is the What's So Great About That podcast.
Okay, so this is the podcast where we try and talk about something that we think is great and we try and convince the other person why we think it's noteworthy or interesting, or what's another synonym for interesting?
Another word for good and interesting.
So last time we did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and that was Grace's pick.
Yeah.
Something I'm really not familiar with, horror as a genre. And this time it was my turn and I picked 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Which, similarly to horror not being your genre, romantic comedies are not my genre.
Yeah, I think the only ones you've ever seen are ones I've made you watch with me.
Yeah, I'd seen a few more romantic comedies than you with horror films, but only because you made me watch them.
They're easy to get people into, if not saying that you were into them, but it's easy to put one on.
It's an easier sell than trying to get someone who doesn't really like horror films to watch horror films.
Yeah, like all kind of witty banter and comic misunderstandings is an easier sell than grievous bodily harm.
Yeah, than chainsaws. Unless you're me. No, I'm like, oh, chainsaws, I'm there.
Yeah. Okay, so my pick for this week was 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and I kind of debated over which rom-com I should pick, or we may end up doing more.
We'll probably do more.
We'll see how it goes. But this is a good one to start with because it's the classic Richard Curtis rom-com, because he did Notting Hill, Love Actually, other stuff after this, but this was the one that is kind of universally acknowledged. He really nailed it, and he's never quite gotten...
Yeah, never quite managed it again. This is like the one that I've heard as being like the romantic comedy film.
Yeah, I remember in the Olympic opening ceremony in London, there was a little montage of like great British film moments, and they had like something from Trainspotting, and I don't remember what else, and then they had a brief clip of Hugh Grant where he's wearing a loud shirt in the scene in the street where he tells Annie MacDowell that he loves her. So a brief synopsis of 4 Weddings and a Funeral. If you're not familiar, it's kind of as described. There are 4 weddings and a funeral.
Yeah, it's another kind of self-descriptive film.
Technically it's 3 weddings, a funeral,
and a wedding.
Another wedding. That
threw me. I was expecting 4 weddings and then a funeral.
Yeah, that would have ended on a very somber note.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole name itself just sounds like a placeholder name. Like they couldn't think what to...
I think I read that it was originally a working title. Have I made that up?
Perhaps. It sounds like it would be.
But, originally, like, that was the working title and then they just stuck with it. I might have completely made that up, but that might have been a dream. Don't quote me on that.
I'm sure Richard Curtis would agree with you. It is like a placeholder title.
Yeah.
So it's about this group of friends, and the main one that we focus on is Charles, played by Hugh Grant, and his quest for love. And at the first, they go to all these weddings together. At the first wedding, he meets Carrie, played by Andy MacDowell, falls in love with her, and it's him trying to kind of get with her. That's not a very romantic way of saying it. It's him pursuing her in the course of these other weddings and funerals.
Wooing her.
Wooing her, yes.
It's a very romantic comedy way of putting it.
Yeah, and the third wedding is actually... Third wedding? Yes, the third wedding is actually Carrie's wedding.
Yeah.
Because she chooses to marry this rich Scottish guy and not Hugh Grant. And then the final wedding is Charles's, or Hugh Grant's wedding himself, because he goes back to his old flame. And then Carrie shows up again. He sees that she's divorced and he decides marriage is not for him, and they decide that they're going to live together forever and ever and ever, but not get married. But I think the main focus of the film is on the friendship group. It's not necessarily Charles and Carrie's love story. So I think that's what everyone always says. Whenever you talk about 4 Weddings and a Funeral, people go, ugh, Andy MacDowell, so annoying. Such a boring love story. But the friends are hilarious. And I think that's really true. Like Simon Callow, Kristen Scott Thomas, they're just such a great bunch of British actors, and they're really doing such a great job of like just this kind of eccentric bunch of people that you really kind of get attached to, because the rest are so bland. Hugh Grant's very bland, Carrie's very bland.
Particularly the main characters.
She's very, well, I was going to say vanilla, that's not quite the word I want, but she's American. That seems to be her only character trait.
Yeah, the one character trait she has is American. She has a nice big hat. That was my favourite part of the film.
She had a nice hat. It is true. I think that's a plot point. Well, not a plot point, but he says to her, nice hat.
Yeah.
And she says, thanks, I bought it specially, in her really grating voice. But my first point was just going to be basically that the friends are more relatable. And I kind of made the tenuous link that the actual movie itself is about the periphery of these weddings, where obviously the actual couple getting married, that's never really the focus of the wedding. It's always people that they kind of vaguely know, or that's not what we're focusing on anyway. And so it's the periphery of the actual love story that we're interested in anyway here. It's not the love story of Carrie and Charles.
In the same way that it's not about the people getting married, it's also not really about the main love story in the film.
So the actual, our breeding pair, I suppose you could call them, they're both just kind of meh and useless. And we decided, I mean, you thought Carrie was quite manipulative.
Yes. I mean, I feel like she's got some kind of personality disorder.
You mean when she kind of sleeps with him and then...
Yeah, and like doesn't acknowledge the fact that she's engaged, and it seems like she was engaged before they slept together the first time.
Before they even met.
And it wasn't just that she didn't tell him about it, it was like she didn't think of it as being an issue at all.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a thing I do. And then kept doing it.
This is normal, this is fine. I can do whatever I want.
I feel like she had something that she needs to work out in therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone you talk to about this movie goes, oh my god, Andie MacDowell. Like, and I've seen her in other stuff. I saw her in Groundhog Day recently. And I really liked her. She was very likeable, so I feel like it's not her fault. I feel like it's this Richard Curtis archetype of...
I felt like it was just the character rather than
it's
the person playing it.
Archetype of this kind of distant American woman that the awkward British guy really looks up to, and she's very effortlessly sexy and very unattainable.
It's kind of like the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song about Ping Pong Girl that we talked about in our Crazy Ex-Girlfriend episode.
Yeah, she's just kind of doesn't care about him, and that's why she's sort of sexy. But yeah, she's in there as this kind of archetype, and everyone always laughs at this scene at the end where he tells her that he loves her.
It was a very bizarre scene.
And they're outside and she's literally dripping wet. She's completely soaked. And he says something about the rain and she says, is it still raining? I hadn't noticed. And everyone, it's just the way she delivers it.
Yeah.
Everyone always makes fun of it. But then I saw someone write somewhere recently, well, how are you supposed to deliver it? Like, that's such a stupid line.
It's not her fault.
She's literally dripping wet, completely soaked. Of course it's still raining. But why would you say that?
Yeah.
So yeah, my first kind of main point was going to be about how the love story is really about the friends. And I said to my mum, oh, I'm going to do a podcast episode on For Weddings and a Funeral. And she put it really nicely. She said, oh yeah, I think the real love story, it's not the main couple, it's all the friends, and it's Scarlett, who is kind of weird and she's got this red hair and she's a bit kooky, and then she meets her American guy, and then it's the character played by James Fleet, whose name I can't remember, who's the kind of bumbling posh idiot.
Oh yeah, the guy who's in the Vicar of Dibley.
Yeah. And he kind of says, oh, I'm not looking for true love, I just want someone who's
alright, who
thinks I'm nice.
That was my favourite part of the film, where he was like, oh, I'm not looking for what you want, where there's like this one person, it's amazing. It's like, oh, I just want, someone who's a nice person. And I just figured, we'd settle down.
Yeah, and then he does get his thunderbolt, as he puts it, at the end of the movie, where at the very last wedding he sees this girl and he's like, oh wow. And then in the montage at the end we see they did get married. And Gareth and Matthew, who it's really interesting in fact in this movie, because it was 94, I think. Yeah,
it was a while ago.
My aunt telling me she went to see it in the cinema when it came out, and she didn't really pick up on the fact that they were gay, which is ridiculous. I think that's just people were just so not used to seeing it.
Yeah, I think it is underplayed. But the funeral scene and like the sort of slideshow bit at the end, it's like it does make it obvious.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's like compared to the other couples, it's not something that's really made a thing of.
But again, like I was saying, the main focus of the film isn't on the main couple.
Yeah.
The emotional kind of climax is the funeral. That's the bit where everyone starts crying. It's not the rain at the end with.
Yeah.
Is it still raining? I haven't noticed.
Yeah, it's like the rain scene's probably it's memorable for being ridiculous. Whereas the part of the film that people probably remember as like the best bit of the film is probably the funeral.
Yeah, with
monologue.
The clocks. Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's really interesting to me that this kind of boring heterosexual bland couple exists and we don't care about them at all. We're just so intrigued by this cast of characters. And I love Kristen Scott Thomas in this movie. And
Which one is she?
She is
Fiona.
Fiona, yes. And I think she's a really good foil to the Andie MacDowell character in that she's striking, not necessarily beautiful.
Yeah, I felt like they looked very similar.
Oh, did you? I kind of think they're...
I genuinely mistook them for the same person.
Oh, okay.
At one point.
If
If it hadn't been for her giant hat at the beginning, I'd have thought they were the same
very
person.
kind of different, I think, in my head. I think
I'm just not good at telling people
very
apart.
pretty, I think.
I'm like two women with short, dark hair. Same person.
So I think she's more kind of striking, and she's witty, and she's cynical and kind of dry, as opposed to the really boring, bland Carrie character. And I think every single time I watch it, I want it to end with Hugh Grant realising he should be with her because she's way better, but then also she could do better than him. I mean, I have absolutely no idea why she's in love with Charles. He's so boring.
I know. Or why Carrie would want to be with him when she appears to be so difficult to please.
Yeah. She really is manipulative, I think you're right, in that...
I feel like this is what she does, and she's going to just go through a series of people.
The fact that
in a few months she'll get bored of this guy and there'll be someone else.
The fact that she even goes to his wedding at the end, she turns up, she's not dressed for the occasion, which annoyed me. She's wearing like a big old coat. And she chooses
she's
to
not wedding ready.
Show up on the day of his wedding and tell him that she's now divorced.
Yeah.
And she must know that what that's going to...
When he's already told her that he's in love with her.
Yeah. And then, but she doesn't even really react to the telling.
No.
She doesn't say no. She just kind of says, thanks. And then it makes a joke on her actual wedding day in her speech. She says, oh, someone here said that if things with Hamish didn't work out, they'd step in. I'll keep you posted. She's deliberately not cutting him loose. And then she chooses the day that he's getting married to turn up and show him that she's single now.
Yeah.
It really is kind of gross the more you look at it.
It is. In a way that I feel like, surely this is deliberate. Is this not deliberate? Is this meant to be like a normal love story?
Yeah.
Because it was framed that way at the end, that it's like it had all the plot beats of romantic comedies, that there's, one person likes the other person, but the other person's in a relationship, but they kind of like the first person too, and then it becomes like an option, and then they're like, oh, maybe not, and then they finally get together, and it's like, that's the classic romantic comedy thing, and that happens. I don't feel like you have the same emotions, like the same emotional response with this story as you do with like the classic romantic comedy story.
Yeah, watching it again recently, I think perhaps one of the reasons they're so unlikable is that you think, what else do you have just in your life to be concerned about? And I read somewhere recently someone pointing out, actually, they must be probably upper class, these characters. We see them at these huge weddings. They all seem to go to each other's weddings. Even Carrie, who kind of... Weddings so big where you think, I have no idea who that person is. And they kind of will say to each other, oh, who's that? American girl, I fancy her. Yeah. And then everyone's the same cast of people at all these huge, enormous weddings. They must be rich. They even say at one point that Fiona and her brother are... He jokes and says, are you the richest family in England? He says, oh no, I think we're about 10th.
And there was a bit where I think Charles says that he was like, they were at one of the weddings and he was staying with a friend, and then he made a comment about it's his friend's house, but really it's like a castle. Yeah,
that was the same people. That's Fiona and her brother's house. So they really are... Yeah, it's just really fascinating to me that such a cast of upper class characters is still so relatable. And I think it's really testament to how kind of eccentric and memorable they are. But then I think it also adds to the reason that Carrie and Charles are so kind of irritating, in that all you see, you just see them at these weddings doing nothing. You never see them doing a job or... Yeah, I never thought about that. You kind of think, what do they do? What's their occupation?
It's like the whole... I guess it is called 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Like, the whole of the film is just weddings.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty. Perhaps that helps to make it more relatable. We only see them at weddings.
Yeah. So that was the thing that I like most about the film, is that it's just completely set around weddings.
Yeah.
You just go from one wedding to the next wedding.
I read that was because there was one summer in Richard Curtis's life where literally every weekend he was at a wedding. He went to 40 in a year or something like that.
I read that he went to it was 72 weddings in like the space of 5 years. I think it was definitely it was 72 weddings in a number of years, which seems like a ridiculous amount of weddings.
Yeah.
How do you even know that many people?
Exactly what I mean. I think it must be. I'm not sure what his social background is. I feel that makes me think he must be more upper class to be just going to all these huge weddings where you can afford to just invite everyone you've ever met.
From what I know, I think this is the only film of his that I've seen. I might have seen bits of others, but from what I know of his films, they seem to all centre around quite posh people.
Yeah.
So it would make sense.
Well, that's our main export as a nation is.
Yeah, it is posh British people. It's very marketable to the rest of the world.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons the cast of The Friends is so appealing as well to other people, is that that's something that we kind of package and sell as these kind of aristocratic people with their kind of quirky fashion decisions, and they're so witty and funny.
Yeah, with their big hats.
But one thing I really liked about The Friends, and that the point that I was making, that it's their love stories that are the ones that we're really kind of focused on, is this idea of love in all kinds of different forms. So we have Fiona and her unrequited love for Charles, and we have Gareth and Matthew, which is obviously really tragic with losing someone that you love, and we have Fiona's brother, whose name I still can't remember, who's kind of just wanting to settle down and he's not asking for much, but then he does get his love, and then Scarlett, who is just kind of an oddball but still manages to find someone perfect for her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of love in all its different forms, and I think
there was the ponytail girl.
Oh yes,
and
of course,
the deaf guy.
Yeah, Charles's brother and the ponytail girl. Because we were saying, why on earth would you wear a ponytail to a wedding if you're going to put a nice dress on? You may as well do something with your hair. But that's a really sweet love story as well. So I think it's celebrating different forms of love and different kinds of love story, and I think you see this again in Love Actually, which now we're coming up to Christmas. I'll be getting ready to watch again soon. But it's that thing again of the different love stories, and I think he does that very well. He does small glimpses into quirky characters and their relationships, and he doesn't so much do he does do it, but it's not successful when he tries to just do the one man, one woman heterosexual love story, and when that's the main focus it's not successful. And perhaps that's why this one works so well, because he's just looking at the weddings, which I think is a really clever way to kind of tell the story, because we're seeing little bits of it, and through little bits, that's I think how Richard Curtis works best. Just little snapshots from people's lives. And it is a really clever narrative device. There's only one bit that's not at a wedding or a funeral, and that's when Hugh Grant...
I think she's like buying a wedding dress.
Yeah, and it's still related to the wedding. So we still don't really see them outside of this kind of world of weddings.
Don't see them outside of the context of weddings, even if they're not actually at a wedding. I like
that just as idea as well, that there is this kind of world of weddings, because I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I like a good wedding, and I kind of say, I wish I'd go to more, and I know I shouldn't say that, because I think I'm coming up to the age where...
You'll get your wish.
I'll be Richard
in a
Curtis
few years.
Going to say, well, probably I don't have that many friends.
Well, you think you don't have that many friends until weddings come around.
Exactly. So I shouldn't complain, because I'll be going to loads, but everyone else in your life is kind of getting married and you're just kind of left. And so I think that's the fact that it's at weddings helps us relate more as well, because everyone can relate to a wedding.
Yeah.
Basically everyone's been to a wedding, and it is this kind of weird other world where you're with people that you know, but it's like all these different people. So it's like your friend from school plus your current friend plus like the person who's getting married and then their family, and it's all this kind of weird mix of people, and you're all kind of pretending it's fine and going along with it, and everybody's dressed up, and it's just kind of this strange little thing that we all kind of survive through together, and it's kind of normal rules don't apply type thing. It's quite interesting.
It's like its own little system, and I think people will relate to being a guest at a wedding more than getting married. Like that's what you associate with weddings is having to go to other people's weddings rather than getting married, because you're going to go to more weddings than you are going to get married.
Yeah, and it's this idea, I think Gareth says it at the third wedding. He says to them, well, I want you to go and find partners, because I want to go to the wedding of someone I actually love for a change.
Yeah.
Of going to weddings kind of someone you like them, but you're not that invested, and just kind of being there. And how we've kind of, in some ways, all these big, huge, posh weddings they're having is kind of removing the actual romantic element of it. It's just, another wedding to go to, as opposed to what it should be, which I guess is some kind of romantic sort of celebration of two people that you care about.
Yeah.
And it's not really that for them anymore, it's just this slog that they have to get through.
It's just something that has to be got through.
And he's always late, Charles is always
Yeah.
late and he forgets the rings.
Yeah. It's just another inconvenience.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to briefly mention is kind of the humour of it.
Hmm.
Because there's not so many gags per se. I'd be interested to hear what you kind of think about
Yeah, the humour.
the humour.
It's
of
more
the-
just awkward
I was
situations,
about
I
to say
guess.
awkwardness. It's
Yeah.
just
Saying the wrong thing and then
it's
going,
very
"Oh."
British.
Yeah,
and
it's a very
just
British type of
awkward
humour.
things happen and people just kind of
It's
stand there
British
and
comedy,
cringe.
not actually have any jokes.
Like the scene where Charles, it's at Bernard and Lydia's wedding and he ends up stuck in the room with them whilst they're having sex.
Yeah.
I remember when I first watched that when I was about 13, just unbearably awkward, and I just couldn't. But I think people can kind of relate to that. I think probably in all our lives at some point we'll be at a party and you'll
end up in a room with people
and not realise that you're in there.
I feel like he could have just edged out the room.
Yeah, and he's handling it in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
Well, that's a staple of comedy, isn't it?
It is.
Make the
Staple of
situation
British
bad
comedy.
and then have the character do the exact wrong thing.
Yeah.
Or just escalate it and make it worse. What could go wrong? How could they mess this up even more and have them do it? Like forgetting the rings. Not only is he late, but he's forgotten the rings
Yeah.
at the first wedding. And then not only have they not got rings, but the rings that they've managed to salvage from Scarlet are like a skull
Yeah.
and a big plastic flower, and it's really gross.
Yeah. It's really tacky, which I feel is appropriate for the idea of weddings. That it's just like a big party that's not really important.
Yeah,
But
and I
it's
think
very fitting to have plastic rings.
And I think as like a British person who lives in the countryside and has been to a few weddings, just the whole kind of aesthetic of it all. These all kind of churches that they're in. And the
Yeah.
halls and the gazebos and things like the people.
It's all very white.
It was all very white and middle or upper class and singing these hymns and are they called the awful folk couple in the credits?
I
Or
don't
the
know.
dreadful folk couple. They sing the
Oh
Barry
yeah,
Manilow
who
song at the
were
first
like
wedding.
playing with the guitar and
Yeah.
I've forgotten what they're
Singing
playing.
Barry
Yeah.
Manilow, yeah. Can't Smile Without You.
Yeah.
Just awful. I think we can all relate to stuff like that. Or certainly I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
I think it's almost quite a specific.
There's
cultural
always an
thing.
amateur band who's like related.
Yeah, like a friend of the person
Yeah.
getting married who's said they're going to sing a
Who
song.
are like, oh, we'll sing a song.
Please
and then yeah. And it's just slightly out of key.
But yeah, so I think I've talked about most of the
Yeah.
things I was going to say.
I had some notes about just the concept of weddings, which is what I was most interested in with this film, because I'm not like a romantic comedy person, and I think that was heightened with this film as they're not a particularly likable couple, and I don't feel like anyone really cared about the couple who were usually the focus of a romantic comedy film. But I did like how you literally just go from one wedding to the next wedding, and it's just a succession of weddings. But it's not like you said, like it's not about the people who are getting married. It's about the people who are at the wedding, which I feel is a good comment on what weddings are in general,
Yeah.
like the tacky rings. That it's not really, because to get married you just sign some papers, but a wedding is like for the benefit of other people.
Oh yeah. But then
And
also, are
it's-
they even enjoying it that much either? Because the
Yeah.
characters in this...
Yeah, it's like no one.
movie.
It's for the benefit of your friends and family, but not something that they generally enjoy. It's
Yeah.
just to make a point of, hey,
Let's
we
have-
love each other.
My granddad and my friends from university and
Yeah.
my siblings and the other person getting married, sort of
Yeah.
relatives and friends from school all
Yeah, it's just to make a
awkwardly
point
hanging out
that
together.
I've done this life event that we're all told that everyone's supposed to do, and it's just to make a point of that rather than to enjoy something or to celebrate loving someone. That it's just become completely ridiculous. And I think having them like multiple weddings all together in a stream, it just really points out how ridiculous they are.
Yeah, how kind of
And
meaningless
they
it
all
is.
merge into one, and it's like they're all exactly the same. It's the same ugly dress. It's the same
meringue.
church. Yeah, the
Same
same
ugly
meringue
meringue.
sleeves. That it makes it seem even more ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think
Because I already thought weddings were
Bernard
ridiculous.
and Lydia, so the couple who get together at the first wedding, and
Yeah.
then the second wedding is their wedding.
That was my favourite joke in the whole film, was that she's like, oh, I'd never be with you, and then 3 months later, and it's their names on the wedding invite.
Bernard!
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that he's called Bernard. I read somewhere that I think one of Richard Curtis's first girlfriends left him
for a Bernard.
So he puts like a kind of annoying Bernard in every film.
Poor Bernard. I mean, Bernard did quite well in this film.
Yeah, he seemed like he was an okay guy.
Yeah, things worked out for Bernard.
Weirdly, I think I do kind of like Bernard and Lydia.
Yeah,
quite a lot as a character. As it feels quite believable, like people like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're my favourite relationship in the film.
Just kind of gave up.
Yeah.
And thought, well, nice. I guess this will do.
Yeah, it's like the guy from The Vicar of Dibley was saying about, you just find someone nice and then that's that, right? That was their story. They're like, I guess, this is
my
fine.
question for you was going to be, did you like it and what was your favourite? You kind of answered that by saying Bernard and Lydia, your favourite couple. But what was your favourite little subplot with one of the other characters? Because, it won't have been the main story.
Yeah, I wasn't really invested in any of their stories.
What?
which I might be more of a me thing, but I didn't really like any of the characters. I quite liked the guy who was in The Vicar of Dibley. I don't know his name or his character's name, but
Fiona's brother. That's why.
Yes, Fiona's brother. Let's call him that. I felt like I related to him most as a character.
Yeah, I think
just sort of doing the wrong thing all the time.
The older I get and the more I watch it, the more I relate to Fiona. Which I don't know if that's a good thing.
The older I get, at the ripe old age of 22.
Yeah. I'm 23 actually.
Ripe old age of 23.
Yeah, she's just so kind of cynical, and I mean, just the moment at the first wedding where the bride comes down the aisle and Scarlett goes, "Oh, she looks lovely." She says, "Scarlett, you're blind. She looks like a meringue."
Yeah.
I feel like that's me at every kind of social gathering, and I really like that they have. Well, I don't like it because I think he should be with her, or whether I don't see why she's in love with him. But their relationship is really interesting, and I don't think you really see that enough. The unrequited love that just kind of...
Yeah, it was weirdly maligned in the film.
It just kind of goes on. Like, there maybe in another movie it would be about her, and it would be about how he discovers that he loves her too, and they get together. But they have it as just this kind of... It didn't work out, and sometimes that happens, and she just kind of has to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's something I like about the film, when things just don't really work out. Because it's not what's expected from a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
That it would be more normal if Fiona was the main character than the film we got.
I'd watch that. I'd love Fiona. But yeah, he's really good at these kind of likeable, kind of snarky British women. Like in Notting Hill, which I think you've seen.
I saw the first half of Notting Hill before going.
Again, that's a film where
I can't deal with this. I'm just going to stop watching it because that's how much I don't like romantic comedies.
The Friends are so much more entertaining. So the dinner party that they go to for Hugh Grant's
I don't remember anything about it. The only thing I remember is there was a bit where Hugh Grant was like standing outside trying to convince someone of something, and that was the point where I was like, I've had enough of this. That's the only thing I remember about the film.
But it's a similar thing again where the love story isn't that great, but Hugh Grant's character has loads of friends who are actually quite funny, and there's a scene where they're all having a dinner for someone's birthday, and the character, I think her name's Bella in that, is not quite the same. It's implied that they used to have a relationship and they just kind of worked that into each other, but they're still friends. But it's this kind of much more likeable, I feel, kind of snarky, witty woman, and you kind of think, why are you not into her? And it's really curious to me that clearly something's going on in Richard Curtis's head where he thinks that these inaccessible American girls are much more appealing.
Is Notting Hill the one where she was like famous or something? Yeah, because
you
showed me a clip of that after we watched Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah, that's another one with a kind of
with a weird
really
line,
cheesy line.
Yeah,
I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy. That line.
Weird scripts in all these films.
Yeah,
odd decisions.
Like the big romantic lines. He just doesn't quite seem to take them, although they still have become iconic and people still reference them.
But because people make fun of them.
Yeah.
Or maybe they weren't as weird at the time. I don't know. Maybe they just seem weird now.
I think, yeah.
I'm only seeing them in the context of 2017.
Perhaps they wouldn't have been as bizarre then.
But I feel like they were always weird.
Because it's kind of like we were saying last time about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how that wasn't the teenagers being stupid and making bad decisions. That perhaps wouldn't have been as stupid at the time because we don't have all this stuff now. Perhaps if you'd seen this in like 94 when it came out, you would have thought this was more romantic. But now every single thing is like, it's a romantic comedy and it's set at a wedding and there's some quirky friend and it's all kind of breaking from, or taking stuff from that same mould, basically. What was your favourite wedding?
They all merged together.
What?
But that was what? Like, I didn't like much in this film. But the one thing I did like was how they all kind of merged together, which is kind of what I was saying before. But it made that sort of weirdly claustrophobic feeling, especially as the main... Well, like, I didn't feel like any of the characters really wanted to be there. But particularly the main character, like, didn't want to be there. So that just made it worse. And he's always trying to get away from people. Yeah. And there's always people he doesn't want to talk to. And they keep coming up to him, wanting to talk to him, even though it's, like, all his ex-girlfriends.
Yeah.
Like, why would they want to talk to him? How had he ended up on this table with all of his ex-girlfriends?
Yeah. Should we talk about Duckface?
Oh, yeah.
Poor Duckface. I feel she gets really maligned. She's this woman who obviously has been hurt in some way.
Yeah.
But we never quite find out why. But
He obviously did something awful.
She's a complete mess, but... And it's kind of, oh, she's mad. We don't like her. But I'm kind of siding with her.
Yeah.
Like,
she seems like a perfectly nice person.
She seems perfectly nice. And we see her later at one of the other weddings, where she's kind of got her act together.
She seems to have got her life together.
And she seems completely normal.
And then he ropes her back in.
Again,
it's just full of manipulative people.
It's Carrie manipulating Charles and Charles manipulating Duckface and kind of roping them back in. And I'm so glad that they didn't get married because she
I feel like she, even though like she was left at the altar, I feel like it was a happy ending for her because at some point she's going to realise that she dodged a bullet.
And I liked that they show at the end, they have the little montage of the going to the chapel.
Oh yeah, so what happened to her?
She gets married to some other guy.
Oh, it's probably better off for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that's lovely.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that as well, that everyone else is kind of all coupled up and happy, and then we see Fiona just with Prince Charles, which is such a bizarre...
More big hats, so I was happy.
Which is, that's just quite funny. And I like that it's also kind of saying she's not entirely conventional and she's probably not going to... Maybe she's not going to get married. Maybe it was just Charles for her.
But that kind of implies that she's still into Charles, maybe. I don't know.
Well, Prince Charles now.
Because now she's with Prince Charles. I hadn't thought about that.
I kind of thought of it as she's just decided she's going to go and have a crazy...
She's like a Charles groupie.
Have a crazy fun time and do all these mad things, like go out with Prince Charles.
But
not necessarily that she's going to do the marriage and babies thing like anyone else. I just really like Fiona. I love Kristen Scott Thomas. I think she's incredible.
Yeah. I didn't like the montage thing though, but then again, just back to what I didn't like about this, because I like when it kind of defied those conventions. Like I like that the main couple don't get married at the end, and it seems like they decide to not get married when especially as the whole film has been about weddings, and that kind of claustrophobia that you get with the main characters being at the weddings and surrounded by weddings is like the same as the claustrophobia of just the concept of weddings. Is like that's something that you have to do, that you have to like look at as a milestone in your life when it's not something that he wants to do. And it sounds like either of the main characters aren't really interested in getting married, but they're kind of being forced into the system anyway, and it just blows up in everyone's face.
Yeah, I wonder if it was made today, if it would be the same, because I feel like that has changed. I feel like if we made it today, the montage at the end there'd be a couple of weddings, and then there'd be
a lot of people doing other things,
them just together, but not necessarily married.
Yeah, it's like everyone paired up at the end, apart from Fiona, who just had a big hat,
and Prince Charles.
Yeah, so I liked that the main couple didn't get married, but I disliked that everyone else did, and that it was still in that system. Where I feel like it could have broken out of that more, and I found that more interesting.
It still was breaking out for the time, but you're right. I think as well with our modern kind of goggles, it's
our modern sensibilities. Yeah, but I did like that it certainly wasn't. It didn't do what I expected it to do in terms of the main relationship. So I like that. I just like that it did something that I didn't expect. I think that was But I don't know. Are we supposed to like the main characters?
That's something I really struggle with. I think I kind of like Hugh Grant, not in that I actually like him as a person, but he is very entertaining. The character, I find him entertaining anyway. Just his kind of bumbling, or even if I'm kind of laughing at him, the kind of bumbling awkwardness and the kind of I'm so posh I just sort of can't even speak properly. And oh God, I think I love you. Oh God. Just that kind of idea, which we've kind of packaged. That's his whole deal now, and that's just what he does. And he's not a very nice person in real life.
No,
but
but I don't know if we're meant to like them. It's like, are we meant to like them and they're just doing a really bad job of it, or are we not meant to like them?
Him. He's kind of this upper class white man, isn't he? He's always late to these weddings as well.
Yeah, he only thinks about himself. He's obviously very self-centered.
Yes, exactly. By an alarm clock.
And another question I had was about whether this still reflects the general attitudes towards weddings and marriages, which we've sort of covered a bit. But I feel like maybe it's like a millennial thing, because there's always these headlines about how millennials are ruining everything and millennials aren't getting married.
What are we killing this week?
Yeah, millennials aren't having babies.
Mortgages,
millennials aren't buying cars.
Diamonds as well. That was another big one. Millennials don't buy diamonds. And paper cups. That was the thing I saw. Millennials are killing paper
diamonds
cups.
are a scam.
Yeah.
And I feel like weddings are a scam. They're very expensive. Yeah. I feel like people aren't gonna I haven't been to many weddings.
They don't have to be expensive. I think there's a difference between the weddings and the kind of weddings that we see in this film. I think you're right in that.
And these are quite posh people.
Aren't so much of a thing anymore.
But I think that used to be the standard, that you'd spend a lot of money on a dress and you'd get married in a church.
And you'd invite almost everyone you knew.
Yeah, and now it's not really like that. Like
perhaps it is if you're posh.
The wedding that I most recently went to was in a forest. And they got married outside. And that was nice. I did go to one that was in a church, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't that sort of church, it just happened to be in a church. It was a very nice church. But I think that now, all the weddings wouldn't be exactly the same. Maybe I just haven't been to enough weddings. I haven't been to that many weddings.
Maybe, or perhaps it is a class thing and we just...
maybe it's a class thing.
Maybe it's still like that and we don't know.
Maybe it's still like that for posh people. Or maybe like it wasn't like that for normal people back then.
I think... The kind of yes and no to your question, I think that kind of wedding, we don't see that anymore, and I think there is the millennial thing of, we don't need to get married. So I think if they made it today, we couldn't be called for weddings and a funeral, it might be something different. Or there'd be more variety in the weddings, or there wouldn't all be weddings.
Yeah.
Because not everyone would be getting married.
And people got married very quickly. The people who hooked up at the first wedding got married 3 months later. That very fast. I think even when people used to get married quicker in the 90s, I think, than they do now, but even for that, 3 months is very quick, and everyone got married very quickly.
Yes.
After meeting.
We don't know, but
then Charles and Duckface got back together within 11 months because they were getting married 11 months after the second wedding.
Although if they previously dated and they'd had a prior history, would that kind of count towards it if you broke up for a bit?
Maybe. I feel like not in their situation.
But I think you're right though. I think the time it takes people to get married,
it's definitely longer now.
And I think it was much more of a thing. It was like meet someone and kind of quick as you can get married.
Yeah, as soon as you meet someone you're like, right, better tie this person down.
Yeah.
Before they swan off.
I think it is kind of a creature of its time and its class, but there are definitely still elements of it that hold true. I mean, you saying you've only been to 2 weddings and they weren't really like that. I think I have been to weddings like the ones in the movie, and they're not necessarily a bad thing. So I quite like weddings, and I think that's one of the reasons I like the movie.
Whereas I don't really like weddings. They were all right.
It's just this kind of, like I was saying,
it's like a whole day out of your life. I don't have that sort of time to spend whole days having to talk to people who I don't really know.
It's just so kind of curious, and everybody's dressed up, and you're in this beautiful location eating this food, and it's just such a kind of like people in a fishbowl thing. I do find it quite interesting, and I think that's why I like watching the movie.
I think now, in terms of the speed of getting married, that there's a millennial thing of just not wanting to be a husband or a wife yet. Because I listen to many a podcast, and a lot of them are hosted by people sort of in their early 30s. And even if they're in long-term relationships and they're at the point where in the past they've probably already been married, and a lot of people are pressuring, older people, their parents think they're pressuring them to get married, but they're I just don't feel like getting married right now. And that thing of I don't want to be a wife yet, because it's like a thing if you're oh, this is my wife or this is my husband.
But then I think boyfriend and girlfriend is.
It starts to sound weird.
Yeah, the older you get.
The older you get.
And I don't like partner either.
I'm quite happy with partner. I used to think partner sounded weird, but now I'm partner. It makes it seem like an equal thing, also, and you say the same thing for both people, and it doesn't matter what gender they are.
I like that element
sort of
relationship
it is.
To me, it doesn't really sound quite right. It's are we?
I like that you can say partner, and no one knows what gender that partner is.
Yeah, no,
it's messing with people.
I like that it's gender neutral, but it's kind of impersonal to me. Do we have a law firm?
I guess it doesn't really, because
in crime.
Partner can mean multiple things.
I think Noel Fielding had a joke about that in his stand-up, where he starts telling a story about how I was in the bath with my partner and he started throwing water at me and I was throwing water back at him, and then my girlfriend came in and said, I don't mind you opening a small business with Jeff. This is a step too far.
I think it is going more in the way of meaning romantic partner though, and then it's going to get awkward for people who have business partners.
Yeah.
When they say partner.
Maybe we'll have to come up with a new word.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Gender neutral.
It would be weird if you introduced somebody as your sweetheart though.
Or maybe just make everybody do it, then it would be normal.
To enforce it.
But there's no good lover as well. That's just horrible. Imagine
No one should ever say lover.
Imagine talking to someone at a party.
This is my lover. That's weird.
Yeah.
No one should say that.
So we're kind of stuck. We'll think
Life
about that.
partner. That would define it. Be like, this is my life partner. I like how formal it is. It just amuses me.
But I think definitely the attitude has changed. I think you're right. But not so much. I think as well we're quite kind of
it might just be
people.
the circles that I'm in personally rather than
I think a lot of
defining
the
a whole
average,
generation.
Average Joe people would probably be like,
normal
come on,
people,
you
not
get
like
married.
us. Yeah, I think I know a couple of people who I define as normal people, and I do feel like they're in long-term relationships and they're probably going to get married within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean,
but most of the people I know I feel like are not marriage people.
I like
And
the idea of a
maybe
wedding.
I'm generalising my little microcosm of friends
I
as
like
being
the idea of a wedding
the norm.
because of the tradition aspect of it, not necessarily the party aspect or because it really means anything. I just like
I don't like traditions. They kind of weird me out, and I don't know why. Which is weird, as I really like routines, and I tend to do this like the same things at the same time every day. Like I get up at the same time every day, and I eat like mostly the same things at the same time most days. I'm really into routine, but I don't like traditions. I think I associate them with like blood sacrifices. I don't know why.
Going to the wrong weddings.
Yeah. That part of the wedding where they sacrifice her, and they sacrifice their firstborn at the altar. Is that not the sort of weddings you're going to?
Apparently not.
Those are just the things that the tradition reminds me of. It makes me think of the Wicker Man, and that they're going to burn an effigy of someone.
Yeah, I actually would be
inside
interested to see a like modern version of Weddings and a Funeral where
Yeah.
there's some really out there weddings and multicultural.
It's like
different
this.
religions.
This is when, because we were talking about horror remakes last time. Why don't people remake romantic comedies in
That's
like
true,
the
actually.
conventions of the time? Because I feel like that stuff changes a lot. Like a lot of romantic comedies from the 90s seem quite dated and in the place and the context of the 90s. That it would be interesting to see what it would be like now with a lot of things.
We haven't really had many romantic comedies in the past few
No,
years.
it's not. It's
There's
out
been a
of
couple
vogue.
that have been alright, but yeah, it's out of vogue for the moment. And I'm not really sure why. Although I will say, you're saying why don't we remake them? I think in some sense we do, in that you've got
Yeah, they just do the same thing over and over
do the
again.
same thing over and over, where there's a few different plot
Yeah.
lines that you've got. There's a comic misunderstanding, there's an aloof guy.
Yeah,
they
I
hate
suppose
each other.
any recent ones that came out, they probably...
Yeah, at some point we should talk about Austen. We could do an episode on her, because she basically, I think if you deconstructed it, you could probably find the archetypes for like all romantic comedies
Yeah,
in her works.
that's probably true. I think Jane Austen stories have been remade in the sense that 10 Things I Hate About You is the Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah, they have. So there's Clueless, which is Emma.
Oh yeah,
Bridget
I've
Jones
seen. I
is
think I
Pride
like Clueless.
Bridget
That's
Jones
a
is,
kind of romantic comedy that I've seen. I like that film.
I like that film a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourites. And Bridget Jones is Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, I
Because,
didn't know that.
Yeah, because Helen
Yeah.
Fielding, who wrote the book, saw...
That's the sort of thing I'd like to see, where you adapt something from one time period and see what how would it play out in this time period.
Bridget Jones was because Helen Fielding, who wrote it, saw the 1995 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth, and she just loved it so much and thought he was so lovely.
I've seen that one.
She thought he was so gorgeous. That's what inspired her to write it, and then they actually got Colin Firth to be Darcy in Bridget Jones as well.
But I'd like to see, like, it doesn't need to be that big of a time jump. I would like to see Four Weddings and a Funeral made now, just 20 years later.
Notting Hill made now would be interesting with kind of fame and the way it works.
Now, because now like social media is such a big thing, which it wouldn't have been. When was Notting Hill made?
Oh, it was after Four Weddings, but not that long after. So I think late.
So still like late 90s. So we wouldn't have had like Twitter and everything.
Yeah.
What would that do? How would Twitter affect the situation? Probably not a lot.
Affect the plot of Notting
But
Hill.
social media, I feel like, would change the story in some way.
Oh yeah, I would like to see that.
We should start a
much as
campaign.
wish there should not be so many remakes nowadays, but still.
But it wouldn't have to be like a remake. I suppose it would have to be a remake. I'd be intrigued. I'd be specifically intrigued to see what forward.
Or at least they should kind of start doing them again, because I feel like people look down their noses at romantic comedies. They should, but I like them as a form of media, and I think they can be done really well. And I know you didn't like this film, but I think this.
Yeah, I like some things about it. I didn't like it in the way that I felt I was supposed to be liking it, but I found the whole social construct of weddings really interesting, and I thought the way it was presented in the film was really well done. But I'm not sure like it was entirely intentional. I don't know what the intent is behind this film at all. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. I don't know if the reactions I'm having are the reactions that I'm supposed to be having.
I think
and that's kind of what's interesting about it.
I think maybe your reactions are right, because I mean, Richard Curtis was just sick of weddings.
Yes.
And that's the kind of idea that you've got from it, is that they've all just merged into one.
Yeah. It's why I find it so intriguing.
Yeah. No, I do really like this film, and I think romantic comedy should start up again, because people do kind of like to mock them, but they're about relationships, which most people care about, and it's this idea that it's about kind of people and how they relate to one another.
I don't know if there have been any recently. I think because
there have been.
I don't watch them, so I like. Was Bridesmaids a romantic comedy?
Not really, no.
Because I haven't seen it. It just sounded like it might be.
The main plot isn't. There is a love story in it, but that's not the main plot. It's interesting, and there was the proposal a few years ago, which not hugely successful. And again, it's still a few years ago now. Yeah, I wonder if it says anything about our culture that they've kind of hit a lull now, and we don't seem to be making
things always come in waves. Like I think like superheroes are in now. Like 10 years ago, we didn't have very many superhero films, and now superhero films are everywhere. So maybe they've taken the limelight in terms of like popular cinema. Yeah. I only have one more question, which is how many times have you seen this film?
I don't know. I don't remember ever first watching it. It's
always been there. Can you estimate?
Oh, probably at least 10, probably more like 20.
That's like at least once a year. Because I assume you weren't watching it when you were 3.
Yeah, no, it would be at least once a year.
You've watched it more than once a year.
It's either it'll be on TV and I'll think, for sure. Or I'll be having a kind of evening where I think I don't want to watch anything that requires... It's something that I've not seen before, something that requires kind of thought. I just want it on. Because I know it so well and it's so familiar. I think I do kind of feel like they're my friends and I relate to them. Not Hugh Grant and Andy McDowell, but...
Yeah, because my main question was why do you keep watching it?
It's this nice fluffy world of weddings where all we've got to care about is the fact that we're at a wedding.
Yeah, no one really has any problems outside of weddings.
Well, apart from the death.
Happens. I always forget about that. I think about the wedding bit. I'm like, oh yeah, there was a funeral. It's in the title.
Yeah. What did you think of the opening? Because a lot of people sort of think at the time the opening was considered quite out there. The fact that you see the people getting ready, and then I think it was just the idea that the first line in the film is fuck. And you have I think the script opens with just Charles fuck 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 fuck, because that's all they say for a good kind of minute, because things just keep going wrong on their way to this wedding. I didn't feel like it seemed like a weird opening. Yeah, I think at the time it was weird. I think now
maybe now it's more common to just be thrown, like there's no establishing shot, you're just thrown straight into what's happening. And like it's not really explained, but you can just see that everyone's getting ready for something. I think it's certainly a good way of getting you to the main point of the film quickly. It sets up that kind of manic process of weddings that everyone's rushing around and the main character's late and like misses. Do they like miss the turning on that?
Yes,
I remember them driving.
They miss the turning and they have to reverse back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they reversed up the motorway and I was like, my dad's done that. Not a good driving technique, but accurate because it's happened to me. Yeah, I think that was a really good opening for what this film is. I hadn't really thought about it. I guess it's more common to do stuff like that now, but I can't think of any examples.
No,
but it didn't seem odd.
But to answer your question, I just think it's cleverly done. I like the opening. I like the idea that it's just done at weddings, as stupid as it sounds. I think that's a clever narrative device. I like this kind of lovely, happy, well not necessarily happy, but world of these posh weddings that everyone's living in.
Yeah.
And I like the characters are relatable. Kristen Scott Thomas, Fiona, I relate to her so much, as I've already said, and just she can do no wrong. She's a flawless human being.
Yeah. Interesting. That's kind of similar things, apart from liking any of the characters, are similar things to what I liked about it. But I wouldn't want to watch it again. But I don't want to watch anything
comforting.
again. Because that's just me. Which is one of the reasons I was like really intrigued into why you keep watching the same film over and over. Because I very rarely
it has a mood
films.
to it. I think I get that a lot with films where it has a kind of mood to it that it can fill me with this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of an ambience that you put the movie on and it's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling now. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, so it's like you know how you're going to feel for the next 2 hours. And you're not going to have to worry about anything.
Maybe I'm more emotionally unstable than you. I need to medicate myself.
Yeah.
With...
It's because there's definitely a weird thing about me, because most people will rewatch their favourite films like upwards of 20 times, and that's not unusual. But the only time I rewatch a film is if like I'm showing somebody else, or if I have to do it for a video, like for a YouTube video. Those are the only times that I rewatch the film, and I always rewatch them begrudgingly. I'm like, I want to make a video about this film. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. I always enjoy watching it again when I'm watching it, but it's like working up to doing it. Like I could be watching something new, which is weird, as I like routines, and I like doing the same things over and over again.
I kind of
I prefer to rewatch
get too
things.
emotionally invested in things, and so I can't always afford to be.
There are a couple of things
something
that I've
new.
enjoyed watching multiple times. I've watched Tangled 3 times
Oh, I love
on my
Tangled.
own, and that's really weird because I don't even think Tangled's a particularly good film. Like it's good at what it's doing, but compared to like other Disney films, I'm a Disney fan. I like Disney films, and like I wouldn't put Tangled in like a top 10 or anything. But I've watched it multiple times. I just find the horse really funny.
The horse is funny.
So it's like of all the
I like
films for me to have watched 3 times, would not have thought it would have been that one.
It's an easy watch.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know
we're
why.
done. Are we done talking?
I think we're done.
Recording?
Yeah, those were all of my questions. We've come to our hourly stopping point that I've arbitrarily decided is a good stopping point. That was a good stopping point.
Okay, I hope the inane ramblings of me about falling into a funeral.
Yes.
was interesting.
Indeed. I think it was a good pair of films to start with.
Yeah.
Like, considering
Nice
this
contrast.
one with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm not sure what we'll do next.
And yeah, I feel like it really sets up our general tastes in films for each of us and how things are going to progress in the future. But there are some things that we both like, so those episodes will go a bit differently. But I like talking about like things I like with people who don't usually like that thing.
No, I do as well. I like hearing about
Yeah,
why people...
it's like the opposite opinion. It's always interesting. I feel like it's a unique take on film podcast. Talk about it with someone who doesn't really like that thing. I hope so. Maybe, but people have probably done it, and I just haven't found that podcast. I'm always finding podcasts. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like what we were gonna do. Damn it.
We're doing it now.
Yeah, no one can stop us. We're gonna keep doing it.
Well done if you've lasted this far.
Yeah, again, if you've made it to the end of this podcast, we've probably got like one person.
If that.
I'm gonna make jokes about that every podcast. It's like, no one's listening. Oh, but thank you if you are listening.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
and see you next time.
Goodbye.
Even though we see nobody. Farewell.
Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Grace here. Just popping back to say the awesome music you're listening to is by the band Cashco. They're great and you should check them out. See you next time.